Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Unleashed Performance Therapy Podcast. I'm here with my co host, Robert McNair. Our guest on the show today is a professor over at the University of St. Augustine out in Austin, Texas, Dr. Matthew Morretta. Dr. Morretta, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew I really wanted to have you on the show. We love having you around campus. Robert and I haven't really had the pleasure of having you in a course yet. So kind of tell us a little bit more about yourself because we don't really know a whole lot.
So I'm originally from Philadelphia, born
Hmm.
and raised in the Philadelphia area. I went to Temple University for actually my undergraduate and for PT school. And when I was in physical therapy school, I actually ended up in Oklahoma. The director of clinical education just said, we have a site that takes students and they house them for free, and they take two at a time. And so I said, let's do it. Free housing. So I ended up actually out in Oklahoma and met my wife there actually. And when I went back to PT school, my ortho professor actually said, "Hey, I know you're really interested in ortho. I know you're dating someone who's actually from Austin, Texas. I have some friends who started a company out there if you're interested." And so that's kind of how I ended up down here in Austin, Texas, and knew I wanted to do residency training, wanted to do advanced training, so I started residency. As I learned more of how inadequate I was, I guess. And so it just caused me to do more. So then I ended up doing fellowship because going through residency, I was like, oh man, there's still people that I'm not helping. There's still things I don't know. So I continued to pursue fellowship training and became a fellow, which was wonderful. Probably the best decision I made professionally. And then always knew I wanted to teach. I really like teaching. I like having interns. So I treated for a few more years, and then made a transition into academia. And I've been teaching now for 7 years, and I love it. I mean, I love teaching for sure, and I love physical therapy. Not every component of it, but I think it's a great profession, and there's just so much opportunity. So now I've been in Austin, Texas for 15 years. I have two kids, and it's a different world.
It's rolling.
Yeah, I mean, growing up on the East Coast, Texas is just the cowboys and horses and stuff, you know. And I never thought I'd live in Texas until about a year before I moved down here, and now I've been here for a long time. So yeah, it's been great.
Nice. Greatest country in the world.
That's right.
Well, one thing that stuck out to me was you said that you learned how the more you learn, the more you realize like how inadequate you
Yeah,
felt. And that's something that I've always thought as well. Like the more you know, the more you realize you have no idea what's going on.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
and even now, I mean, like I said, I have advanced training, residency, fellowship training. Been teaching for a while, and there's still just so much to know. And that's one of the great things about being in academia is just surrounding yourself with really smart people, because then they start talking. You're like, oh wait, I don't know that. I should really go. I should learn about that. There's just so much that you don't know, and I think the more I've been learning too, the more I realize that that's okay. That everyone has their specialty. Like there's really things I believe I'm stronger at, and then there's just things I'm not. And but I know people who are strong at those things that I'm not so much. So if I need help in those areas, I go and reach out to them. Right? We all have our strengths and weaknesses. So
Yeah, speaking of specialties, I've been a tech for a long time, and of course, it was in an ortho setting. And over these last almost 2 years, I've actually been at a neuro hospital. So I'm
yeah,
kind of growing to love the neuro setting. But I think still I have kind of that that ortho calling.
yeah,
And then you get perspectives from neurotherapists, like,
hmm
okay, they don't like the protocols, they don't like kind of being underneath the doctor's thumb kind of thing. And at this neuro hospital, I mean, you're pretty much on your toes all the time, and they're able to kind of just, again, no protocols.
yeah.
Let's just get the job done. What kind of drew you to the ortho to pursue your specialty?
Um, First, I was an athlete in high school, and I think that's what leads a lot of us right into physical therapy, getting injuries, getting experience with it, and usually in ortho. But then I went to physical therapy school, and I learned like there's so much more. Like neuro to me was like amazing, like the nervous system and spinal cord injury, and I thought I wanted to be a neurospecialist. But then actually on that same internship in Oklahoma, it was my CI who I just got lucky to be placed with was going through a fellowship. And so he just was like, talking about all these different things and, manual therapy, and seeing him work on patients and have an immediate change. That was kind of blew my mind. And that's what got me into ortho, into manual therapy, because I think a lot of people have the perspective of like rehab is slow, right? It's like arduous. And sometimes it is, right? People who have severe trauma, it's slow and arduous. But most times, though, we can make very quick changes, amazing changes, and that was amazing to me. And it wasn't just that, but it was also the process. Like let's test something, let's treat it, and let's retest it and see if there's a change. And that whole process to me really led me into getting in ortho and kind of solidified that for me.
Okay. Well, switching gears a little bit, I kind of wanted to talk about this pro bono clinic that we have going on at
Yeah.
USA. Robert and I have been fortunate enough to participate, and I wanted to talk about the inspiration to the addition of that pro bono clinic at the university. What are kind of the services provided, and what's the ins and outs of everything?
What do you want me to talk about? The inspiration first, or the logistics, the ins and outs and all?
Let's talk about the inspiration. What
All
brought
right.
that in?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, I think I've been more honest with myself and probably with everyone else around me the last couple of years, just because my own personal growth and well-being is probably my insecurities. To tell you the truth, when I always felt like I should do pro bono, like that should be something, because I wanted to be somebody, right? Like I wanted to make a name. I wanted people to see me as like a good person, right, and respect me. So I always had that in my in my mind that that's what I should do, right? That would make me valuable. And then now though, as I've grown up and matured, I've kind of realized that that's not necessarily true. I hope that I see myself as valuable without all that, right? But what I have changed though is my values. And my values, what I always go back to is kindness, and I go back to that. What is the kind decision? And it evolved from I want to do this because it's going to make me look good versus I want to do this because it's going to just help everyone around me in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And and I had this idea because in academia we have so many opportunities of hey, this university should be doing it, right? So we're at a very large university. There's so many resources around us. Why not do it? And I kind of was talking to people for a few years about it, like why not? Why isn't there this and that? And then I heard, hey, now there's no barriers, and no one else was doing it. So I said, let's just do it. Let me go and just talk to people and just start it. And the more I learn, the more I get into it. I mean, there's just so many positives. I just haven't really run into honestly like a negative component of doing this. And it's been great. It's opened up so many like opportunities and just experiences and relationships. So it's been really awesome. So that's kind of the inspiration. That's probably a long explanation, but like logistics of it is really especially this past first year. My motto was like, we take everybody. So any student that wants to come in, do it. Like
Mm-hmm.
wherever you're at in the program, come in, get some experience. A patient walks in the door, we'll see them. As long as it's legal and all that stuff. Somebody wants therapy, then come on in. Whatever it is. And if it's something I can't, it's not my specialty, it's not ortho, then hey, I'm going to tag a faculty member who that is their specialty and come in. And so that's kind of how I like to run it. We're getting a little bit more, I wouldn't say constraints, but a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more procedural, because I think just to make it easier and make sure that we have the resources and everything that we need for it now. But that's kind of the logistics of it. I've been focusing on the Flex program for us because that's where I teach. And so it's been Friday evenings. We've been doing it from 4 to 7 on Friday evenings, which I think has mostly worked out.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Yeah. Now there's residency students. There's resident students who want to get involved too because their word's a bit out too. So that's part of my agenda moving forward is trying to get them involved and kind of figure that out logistically. So
What do you feel like were some of the key steps to getting this on like up and running?
To tell you the truth, is just reaching out. People want
Okay.
to. People like to help. I mean, I think we're therapists, right? That's part of it. We are altruistic, and so just saying, "Hey, I want to do this." What resources are there? And so it was just I talked to my boss, Dr. Singhal, who's been super supportive and helpful, who then got me in touch with Miss Capel at the university, who's the pro bono manager and telehealth service manager. She's been awesome. She has a ton of resources, and they were like, let's go, let's do, if you want to do it, then do it. So it was really just reaching out and saying, hey, I want to do this, and talking to people.
Okay. And I know you mentioned that you didn't really have anything, you hadn't had any complaints or anything negative come from it. Have you had any challenges whatsoever?
Yeah, so that's not what I've heard, right? I haven't heard of any, but maybe there's somebody. Challenges, yes, absolutely. Challenges have been, I think, on the student end of things, is students being concerned in a way, like a little bit insecure of, I don't want to go in there and kind of look dumb and do all that. I don't know what to
Mm-hmm.
expect. I wouldn't say that. I think there's a little bit of that. I think some of it is, though, just not wanting to be thrown to the wolves.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and so once I sit down and talk to them, like, this is how it operates. Like, the faculty, whether it's me or someone else, is going to be there. So they're going to be there to support you. You go in, just, take a subjective exam, talk to the patient, has much support that you need. And so when I talk to specifically how they run, it's been really a positive. So the student recruitment at first was a little tough. There were, a few students who were very supportive, and I'm really thankful for them, who just like were brave and just took the leap. It was
Mm-hmm.
last spring when I first did it, kind of like a beta testing, and then as the word has gotten out, there's been more and more students now attending, which is great. On the patient end of things, it's getting more patients in, and that's again another objective for me in the next few months, is to reach out more to the community. So we've had a lot of patients from the university, community students, even staff, faculty, family of faculty. But I really like to reach out more into the community. So that's been a little bit tough, just because that takes more effort. So I just have to put more effort out into that. Um,
In what
one,
ways are you reaching out currently to the
I've
community?
emailed some therapists who I know, in Austin area.
Okay.
So that's been some of it, but I really need to reach out to more of like non for profit organizations, people who are really in need, and I just haven't done that yet. Just because I've been trying to get it started, control all the
Mm-hmm.
logistics internally, and now that's sort of set of how it's running. So then I have to reach out to get more patients in, and then hopefully the issue, which I've already been talking about in the future, will be space. If we really get it going, we really reach out in the community and get people in. If it grows, then it'll be more of a space issue.
It's a good problem to have. We need
Yeah,
more space, kind of thing.
exactly. Yeah. That's, we can control that to a degree, like have a wait list or what have you if need be. But I don't really, I don't want to do that. I'd like to have more space and have a regular setup. So there's some talk about that.
Okay.
And on
So
the
go ahead.
definitely on the student side of it, I know me personally, going in there, of course, nervous, but like you said, not necessarily just throwing you to the wolves, knowing that the professors are there if you need anything. They're not throwing you into anything that you can't handle, kind of thing. And I know me and Jamie, we relayed that to our cohort to
Yeah.
try to get more people out. That it's nothing really to be afraid of or nervous of, something like that. I mean, I definitely enjoyed it. I know Jamie did. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he already kind of does this, but it's good to get out there. I definitely like what you said as far as being valuable and versus the values. I
Yeah.
know that kind of course, you articulated it way better than I could, but in my head, the same thing. Like, I want to go out there and change people. I want to pro bono. Yeah, I'm doing it. We're doing it for free. I want to help somebody for
Yeah.
free. But really, it was kind of molding the way I act and stuff like that. And 100% appreciate like
Yeah.
everything you've been doing. So
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a big like growth for me for years. And when I tell this story a lot, because it just means so much to me, is the start of my fellowship is when it really changed, because we had these weekend intensives, right? We have these weekends where all the fellows in training would get together to learn skills and everything. And the therapist, the fellow who ran the weekend, he went around and said, everyone introduce themselves and, tell why you decided to do a fellowship. And so people went around and said, hey, I want to be better. I want to get better skills and all these things. And there was a gentleman who stood up who was probably at least 20 years older than me. And he owns private practice in California, for 20 years, very successful and all of that. And he decided to do a fellowship. And he said, I decided to do a fellowship because my patients deserve it. And that was it. And he sat down. And that was like, for me, it was like, wow, I'm going about this all wrong, And so that's when I decided to change it. And it's been like a big growth. And I constantly think about that all the time of, what I want to do for myself versus everybody else. So that was pivotal for me.
It's a great mindset to have. And you kind of mentioned it earlier that the next thing would be to have more space when this becomes bigger, when this starts to grow. Where do you kind of see this pro bono clinic going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it would be a part of the curriculum.
Okay.
I think that's the ultimate, because if it's a part of the curriculum, then it's a set thing that's not going to go away, right? Like where I'm at now, I still feel so. If something happens to me tomorrow, and I go disappear somehow, then the pro bono stuff goes away, right? So part of the curriculum, it's set. So that's a big thing. And I've spoke to some of like the other some of the leadership, and we've talked about how in physical therapy education, there's just some things that can't really be taught very well in a classroom.
Exactly.
Right. It's like, and you guys know this because you have experience, like being there in front of the patient, there's a lot to that you learn, right? The communication, just the innuendos, like the things that you hear that the patient says, or the nonverbal that you pick up on, and you can talk with a mentor or somebody. I mean, there's just so much of that, I think, that it's almost necessary to have that. And that's part of clinical education, obviously, right? But to have some of that beforehand is great. And so my thought is within the next 5 years, and most people are on board that it's going to be a part of the curriculum somehow. Right, and it'll be kind of set, and there'll be certain assignments or what have you within that, and a certain amount of time required to spend within the pro bono clinic. So hopefully there's talk about some getting like a permanent space, a larger space for it. There's talk about having a mobile clinic, so like a bus
cool.
or something, to drive around and go to certain places, underserved areas. To treat that would be great. There's some other universities who have regular days where they, one day a week is ortho day, one day a week is neuro day. They have therapists from the community or alumni come in to help mentor some of the students. So that's part of what I'd like to do too, is pull some of the therapists from the community in to help out. And there's some interest from people that I've talked about as well. Once we get that, that's a possibility. That are very interested in doing that. So that's what I ultimately would like to see, is it be part of the curriculum. It's set, it's scheduled. We have a set space, whatever that is, and there's like alumni and community therapists who come in and help out as well.
I definitely like the idea of it being a part of the curriculum. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that being implemented in other universities or other programs?
Yes, I've heard about it. Yes, in certain ones who have a set pro bono kind of system set up, but it's part of the curriculum. There's assignments associated with that, whether that's within like a course or it's its own course. Somehow, yes.
And I think I remember you saying at the last pro bono clinic, I don't know if it was at the last pro bono clinic or it was just at some time on campus, you were talking about at one point you would like to be, that would be the only thing that you would like to do.
I don't know about that. I think that would be, I'd like to make it a part of my workload, would be to run the pro bono clinic. So like teach, cut down on my regular teaching classes. I would like to do some of that, and then have a portion of my teaching load just in the pro bono clinic. I think
teach the fun classes, right?
Yeah, right. Everyone just wants to do what they want to do. Teach what I want to do. But I like mentoring. I'm a big mentoring has helped me so much in that one-on-one, like in front of the patient. I think I have a bit of a talent for it, doing it that way. Um, and that would be ultimate. I don't know if they would ever let me do that, but that would be awesome if I could do that. Teach like
I
a
agree.
course or two that I really like, and then just be in the pro bono clinic the rest of the time.
So, what exactly does it take for a physical therapist or a PTA like myself to start their own pro bono initiatives in their communities?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, Honestly, this is like probably super corny, but just like a desire to do it. There's a passion to do
Uh
it.
huh.
There's so many areas like if you want to get involved and you can do that, and people are willing to help. I find it's there's difficulty sometimes in saying yes. Right? We all are very like it's okay to say no. Right? You hear that a lot. Like it's okay to
Mm-hmm.
say no, or protect yourself, or what have you. And I'm more of a person who says it's okay to say yes. Right? Opportunities will come up if you want to do something. Then say yes. I think that's um, almost kind of not done enough in a way. And then just asking for help because there's services. I mean, you can find spaces, you can find people who will help and resources. It's not the easiest, it'll grow slowly, but I think that's the biggest. It's the biggest part of it.
What are some of the legal things that have to be done in order to
Yeah.
start that?
So there's a consent, of course, consent to be treated, but that's the nice thing about pro bono as well is that there's just minimal requirements for documentation because there's no insurance, right? And there's
By
obviously no bill.
minimum, do you mean no documentation, or is there have to be some kind of
No, there should be documentation to document what was done, right? I mean,
okay?
there's documentation. For one is to like a CYA, right? Like you never know, like this is what I did, right? And then also, so if the patient comes back again, you know exactly what was done, right? And you can kind of follow through.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely documentation for sure, but there's just not as many strict requirements because there's just no billing component to it, right? There's no insurance component to it. And then obviously there's just no billing documentation. You're marking off units of time or anything else. So it's that's another nice thing about it is you don't have all that, and really insurance isn't driving your decision making, right? And I hear that a lot in class. But when I ask, what would you recommend frequency and duration of visits, and it's like, well, this patient they might only get 10 visits or something like that. No, like you don't, right? We're not worried
Mm-hmm.
about that. We're not considering that in our decision making, um, which is nice. But you have to consider too that for pro bono services, I think an average patient attends about like 1.2 visits of pro bono therapy because it's pro bono. So you don't have that extended really care through a whole full plan of care, right? So that initial interaction, usually you're just going to have the initial evaluation and treatment. It has to be valuable. So it's a little bit of a different process as well because of that. Right? You got to show value first time, make sure that they understand instructions. You give them
Mm-hmm.
to work with on their own. So
Okay. Well, so part of what I really wanted to talk to you about too tonight was
mhm.
I really want to actually try and get something started in. I'm from a rural part of Texas.
Yeah,
My town's a square mile big, and
they're out there. I know
yeah,
those are out
I really want to start something like that, a pro bono experience something here in where I live,
there.
and
Absolutely.
I really wanted to see what I needed to do to get that started, other than find a supervising therapist.
Yeah, I think you need a space, right? I think you need a space, and then reach out to local organizations, non-for-profit organizations where you can recruit patients in. I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, other
Hmm.
than that, like some sort of documentation, but that can be just paper. It's pretty minimal
Okay.
of what's
So there's
required. I think
nothing specific that I need to like look out for, make sure that I do other than consent to treat.
I believe that's true. I can go and confirm. But yeah, I mean that's when my conversations with Nicole Capel, Miss Capel, she's the pro bono manager. That's what I keep asking her that because I can't believe it either. I said, no, we're going to sign it, and she said no. But that's it. Like consent to treat, and then a good space for it, and then you just need to
Mm-hmm.
get people in and know that they're there. But once the word's out, I think you'll probably
Mm-hmm.
find that you get more people than maybe you were hoping for.
Okay. Okay.
Definitely that word of mouth is a big thing, especially with pro bono.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely, and that's what I've run into this past year as well. Is fortunately, people have been telling me they've had great experiences, and then they tell their family. So then I have a family of people coming in and all of that as well. So yeah, word of mouth is huge.
And there are no limitations to your treatment other than, I mean, really not anything that's within the scope of practice, correct?
Yeah, limitations just as always, right? So our scope of practice within the state, our state practice act. So it's the same
As
same
far
thing.
as modalities are concerned,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
because I'm still
Get
trying to
it,
convince
Jamie?
you to let me, still trying to convince you to let me bring my needles to pro bono clinic.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think my license, I could cover you, but the university probably wouldn't be really pleased about that. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
for you, the university,
Too many hoops. Too many hoops.
yeah, yeah, for sure. But it's again, you're trying to help people. You're not getting paid for it, so. Um, I don't want to say people just let you do whatever you want to, but there's less requirements. You stay within the
Mm-hmm.
practice area, your scope of practice, and not just within scope of practice designated by the state, but also your personal scope of practice is a big part of it as well, right? Like, what do you feel comfortable doing? Is that something that you feel comfortable doing? Um, and 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 that's mostly it. So again, it's the pro bono world to me is it's great. It's great for learning, for teaching, for providing services to the community.
I agree.
And
It's been really good for me for building I mean, my skills as a therapist, and I've really appreciated the opportunity to be able to be a part of it.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you guys coming and doing it because it's extra time. I know. I mean, PT school's not easy, and I know you guys have to do other things, obviously, like the podcast, and we're just talking about families. So Friday evenings, it's extra time. So I'm always super thankful for the students who come in because I know it's extra. So thank you for participating.
Absolutely,
It would
absolutely.
be me sitting there, but trying to see some patients by myself. It probably wouldn't last very long.
Mm-mm. Where can the students on campus and listeners, if they wanted to come get treatment at USA, where can they find out more information about getting involved or seeking out
Yeah,
services?
absolutely. I already have dates scheduled for this coming trimester. I usually do
Oh,
it trimester
okay.
to trimester, and I'll be sending out an email next week, actually, the first week of the trimester for that, and then we usually post up flyers around campus too for patients and for students who want to participate. So that should be coming out next week as well.
All right. Um, Anything you want to shout out? Any kind of promotions or anything before we let you go for the night?
No, I don't want to. Not really. It's just I just appreciate being here. This is great talking to you guys.
Yeah,
Honestly.
absolutely.
But no, no. Thanks for having me on. There's not really anything I'm promoting. Just you know, being healthy, being good to each other. That's about it.
Uh-huh.
We'll
Absolutely.
have to have you back and dive into some ortho talk.
Yeah,
Definitely. Oh
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love it. I can talk.
One one last question. One last
Sure.
question. Um, just a fun quick question. If you could treat any celebrity in your pro bono clinic, who would you
Oh
like to
man,
have walk in that door?
Yeah,
like
what
this is
celebrities coming to the pro bono?
like whether they're healthy now or not. Like I don't have to pick like
Uh,
some injured person.
Any.
Any
They just come
celebrity,
to any celebrity. They come
living
to
or
the door.
dying. Can I be a
Any.
guest? Like somebody like that.
Anybody.
Anybody. Oh man, this is getting interesting. The first thing that comes to my mind is Ben Franklin, like big Ben Franklin fan. Uh,
Okay.
Second is Buddha, like Buddha coming in. Like I
Oh,
think that
okay.
would be a great experience. I don't know if I would do anything
See, a few months ago, mine was Beyonce. So you're going a different
Yeah,
route than me.
I'm a professor, Robert. I need to keep up a
Yeah,
certain
yeah.
image. I don't know how to do it. You're not married yet. You got a couple months. I'm married and all. So.
Well,
Yeah,
Dr. Morretta, once again, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your evening. You're a busy man. You got a family, just what we talked about before that we started the show. So thank you for taking the time to do this with us.
absolutely. Thanks for
Appreciate
having
it.
me on. This is great. This is excellent.
Mhm. All right. Well, that's it for this episode of the Unleashed Performance Therapy Podcast. If you have anything you want us to talk about on the podcast, shoot us a DM on Instagram at unleashed.tx. And y'all, be sweet to me. Scroll down to the bottom, give me a 5-star review, share the podcast with your family and friends. And until next time, peace.